Hey, super friends, welcome to another episode of Dave's Imaginations, where we recap last week's D&D session. Session from Thursday, January 13th, Dark Gifts Received, an encounter with a skeletal mage, and an escape from the Amber Temple, all in last night's D&D session. Stay tuned, let's do a recap. Okay, so last night our adventurers had just made it into the Amber Temple's room. What was that? Yeah, our adventurers had made it into the Amber Vault, and they had each taken position in front of an amber monolith, if you would, and they had received a vision from the gods, where they were given a temptation of a gift, really an overpowered gift, a powerful gift, but each with a catch of some way or another affecting killing humanoids. Was so in most cases that was the catch. Uh, so that's where we began last night. So this week I did a little pre-work live video. I have added chapters. So we always do this. We always do our session live and stream it on YouTube. And this week, after it was done, I went back and I tried to pick out significant times in that adventure so that we could jump right to it, and that would help me with this video. So if we go, so here I am on the YouTube channel, and I've gone to the video, and here I'm at the beginning, but I've added these chapters. So we kill a lot, right? This is live. Everything's raw, just as it happens, and so things progress slowly at 11 minutes in. It wasn't until 11 minutes in that we actually did the recap. Then, following that recap, we went into the reactions to the dark gifts. And so here we are, and each of them I had two at two of the amber stones and three at another one, and I had them each look to the other and describe what they saw. So glowing from visually evident, you could see that his complexion changed, where he had once had his DNA spliced with alien DNA. That had been resolved, and he was back to his self-proclaimed beautiful dwarf self, and that was all he was willing to tell at that time. And then when it came to uh, Katota, and Katota had, at first he said, "Oh, there's nothing different about me," and then there was like, "Well, what's that one in here?" And it's like, "Oh, what one?" And then we jumped over to Olak, Strider, and Ruckus. Olak had a wand also, and he didn't really go into much details. Strider, there was nothing visually different about him other than he had an air of confidence about him, and so that's what Christian revealed about his gift. And then for Ruckus, though, that was probably the most revealing, as his wings had shriveled, and so he had to renounce his gift that he had received from the other gods, and as he took the this new gift. They all took the gifts. I wasn't sure they would, but they were pretty darn good, and the catch was not that big of a catch. And then finally, the last two, we had Varinka, who Varinka has been after this glaive of dunamancy for almost a year. It is pretty darn close to a year that Noel's been talking about that. And finally, I gave him an opportunity to claim it, or claim what looks like it. So we'll have to see if it turned out to be the real glaive of dunamancy. And then finally, we had Irina, and Irina says she knows what she must do, and she claimed the sun sword as her weapon, and says, "Let's go." And everyone else says, "Not so fast. Let's figure out what we want to do." And they talked about this teleportation brazier for a little while before deciding to go up the staircase to the second level, and that's our next chapter. Go to the library. Now, in this library, Olak was thrilled as he sees all these books and he goes looking through the books. Eventually, we uncover that the books, there's nothing on the binds and there's nothing on the pages that could be read. So there's some magic there, and I think they even did a identify and a tech magic to realize that you would need to have a true sight to be able to read, which they don't have. Now, as I move around a little bit here, one of the failings of how I've been running this game is blotting out the rooms with the boxes, so they know there's rooms next to this room, and I put these little dashes to resemble where there might be a secret door. That was too big of a hint as they really honed in on that, and they searched the walls until they found the secret doors, and eventually they uncover this one to the west, and but that also looked like another dead end. And then they find one to the south, the stairways to the south, and eventually they find another one to the west. And then as they go in that room to the west, we come up to our next chapter here where they uncover a skeletal mage. A skeletal mage, and I think I have a picture of it. Xanther, right there. Skeletal mage, beady red eyes, and as they talk to him now, this mage, uh, he's a little dementia, right? So he says, "Heinrich, is that you?" And they would talk a little bit, and then he would get confused, and they tried to pull some information from him. They got that the room they had some spell books in there, and well, there was nothing in the mage's room. They learned that there was a huge binded spell book in his room, and yeah, so there's the token of the skeletal mage. Noel called him a lich. I don't know why he would do that. And so eventually they figured out that the other room to the south had stairways, and they opened the door and they were able to bring their shield guardian in there. And that comes to the next chapter. The next chapter is they move back downstairs. They move back downstairs, and they're trying to figure out what they want to do next. They want to uh, investigate this temple some more. And I think most people they were pretty beat up, and they didn't have a lot of spells left. And we can pause it there. They had this poem that they could use to give them clues about where they could go with this teleportation brazier, where they throw a stone in and it opens a portal to a different spot. And many of they tested each of them. They tested each of them, and they ended up. Let's see, cast a stone into the fire, and I don't know what these are myself, but they ended up going to the indigo to the master's bride, and that's where we come to the next chapter. Indigo. Oh, before we do that, in this time, um, Strider reveals his personal quest, his gift from the god, at least somewhat, as he talks about he needs to go to the peak of Mount Gacchus to battle a giant goat, giant goat, and where he'll get a cloak and some trinkets, and he'll be given the ability to uh, lead all the wildlings and the druids of Barovia and become their leader. And he says he really wants to do this, but he's not sure exactly how he is to do that. And we spend some time talking about that. Ultimately, we said, well, with this brazier, we ought to be able to come and go from this place much more easily. And so let's go find somewhere safer. Let's go find somewhere safer to spend the night. And so that's what they do, as they test each of these stones, and with the stones they throw it in, and the flame, the heatless flame would change colors and open a portal, and they would take a peek in, and it would only last a minute before it would shut back down. And so they went through each of those and to figure out what they are. And the one they liked the best was Indigo to the Master's Bride. But that took them to the Abbey of Saint Narcovia, the Master's Bride. We can jump there. And so, in each case, the room that they would be pulled to, I read to them straight out of the adventure module, and I did the same for this one. And I told them they saw this character here, and I don't have him, Cloven Bellevue, right? And they talked about that a little while, and then the on the table with the blanket pulled over her face was a human female body. Talked about that. So that this is where they went. This is where they went, and they pulled in. They pulled in the Shield Guardian, but when they did, it lost its power. It just kind of slumped over, lifeless. And in here, when they got here, that Woven guy said, "Let me go get Master." And he goes down the stairs, and 5 minutes later, they decide to follow him down. And they go back to a room they've been in before. This room, where some of them, where many of them, a few of them had resolved their addiction to the pies, and that is where Katota picked up the ability to change into a plant, and Ruckus got his streak of white through his hair, and the Abbottstein and his makeshift or construct, the construct that he is making to be Strahd's wife. One of the bigger reveals at this spot, though, was that they got there using Strahd's teleportation device, and that he has certainly detected that somebody has been using it, and it wouldn't be a surprise if he showed up at any moment to investigate who's been using his teleportation device. And with that, our party says it's time to get out of there. They very quickly leave, and not before. Interesting enough, they give the control device of the construct of the Shield Guardian back to the Abbottstein. And he says, well, the Abbottstein says, well, I'll try to say that's what came through portal, but he wasn't confident that Strahd would buy it. So eventually they did. The party did leave here, and they set on their way. And as they walked, they decided they were going to go to Argynvostolt, ruined castle that was half in ruins at least, where they had uncovered the Tome of Strahd. They had uncovered the Tome of Strahd and encountered some of the spectral paladins, clerics of the Silver Dragon, and so they're going to go there to take their long rest. As we said, it was about 5 o'clock when they left there, and then a half hour into the walk, a raven jumps down in the road. A raven, and things become dire as the raven. Here they left Press, and they're heading to Argynvostolt, which I believe is here, as they decide to go to Argynvostolt instead of their lodge, because they figure Strahd knows it's a likely place they would go, and Strahd might be there, and they want to get a long rest. And so that's a nice 2-hour hike, and a half hour into that hike, they run into a raven lands in the road right in front of them and leads them off into the woods, where they meet this Dag Martikov guy, and it's the same guy they had previously saved from being beheaded in the town of Vallaki. And he asks them, "Oh, do we have any food? My family is starving." And of course they do, and they help him out. And as they're talking with him, they get attacked by direwolves. And I threw that attack in the direwolves in there so they'd have a chance to flex their muscles with these new gifts they had. And some of them did. Some of the when we start out the battle with the direwolves, the direwolves are there and they roll initiative, and some of them have the jump on it. And early is they use minor image to create a distraction for the wolves, and then another one puts a whimpering deer. That's a minor image of a deer, right? And another one of them enhance that with the sounds of a deer. But these are wolves. They go off smell as much as anything, and they didn't really fill the wolves. But I rolled for it, and there was 8 wolves, and 6 of them failed their check. They were distracted by this mirror image, and so but the other 2 they attack loin with their packed tackets. They did a pretty good bite, 20 points of damage, pretty good bite on the loin, and so with that, battle ensues. The first half of the group, they do their mirage, their uh, illusion, and they try to make an escape. But the second half of the group, they decide to attack, and attack they did as Barinka uses her new glaive to stunning effect with her ability to suck them in and do damage. I don't remember what's it called. Fortune pulse wave? No, it's a gravity sinkhole. She used gravity sinkhole. I go here. If I bring up another thing, dude, yawn, gravity sinkhole. Yeah, 20-foot radius sphere of crushing force forms at a point you can see with a range and tugs at the creatures there. Each creature in the sphere must make a constitution saving throw, which they all failed. And taking 5d10 force damage is pulled straight in line toward the center of the sphere, ending in an unoccupied space as close to the center as possible, even if that space is air. A successful save, the creature half damage and isn't pulled. But they failed and did enough damage to kill all 6 of them. And then after that, I don't know, died. Strider killed his and used his spear to Vaughn, and it's the first time he actually used that to effect. Now I gave him a break. Right. Initially, he used the spear first, and then followed it up with his sword. I flipped that around to give him the ability to use his spear to cause the death, the killing blow, so he would get its benefits. He'd never done that. I wanted him to experience that. And then finally, in that encounter with those dire wolves, Tota was able to use a first level spell so that he could roll on his new wild magic table, which he rolled a 1, 2, or 3 to get the strongest effect of the wild magic. He turned himself into a giant spider, and that giant spider, and each of the people within 5-10 feet of him also had to do the save, and but they all passed, but Tota failed as he turned into a spider for a minute. So that was a fun chaotic effect for him, and I thought it was fun. And then from there, we pretty much ended our night. As they were walking on toward Argynvostholt, trying to decide what they're going to do next, all looking forward to a long rest to heal up and get their spell slots. This is probably the longest they've gone, most adventuring, most battles they've done in a day, most spells they've exhausted in a day. So that was kind of, I liked it. I liked them to feel that pressure. That's where we ended. So with that, they made their way to Argynvostholt, and we'll begin next week with them just arriving and making sure they get their long rest. I don't know. What will they see at Argynvostholt? Will it still be safe for them? It will probably be safe from Strahd, but there were other things there, right? They had those paladins or clerics of the Silver Dragon, not to mention all the spiders. They killed off some of the spiders, but they didn't kill all the spiders. And I think there was even a small dragon there. So there are things there that they still have to deal with, but relatively it could be safe from Strahd. So, and they ought to be able to get the long rest. We'll see. We'll see what happens next week on Dave's Imagination presents Dark Queen Ascension Adventures in Barovia. Take care.